Everybody, welcome City Council, welcome guests, and especially welcome to all of you who are joining us electronically. This is a regular meeting of the City Council, the City of Waverly, Iowa. This is Monday, October 7th, and this meeting is called to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, you have in front of you an agenda. I would accept a motion to approve.
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
There it is. Any discussion? I hear none. You appear ready to vote. This will be a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That passed unanimously. You have in front of you a set of minutes from our regular meeting, September 16th. And the other meeting on September 23, which is a study session. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the minutes from September 16th regular meeting and the September 23rd, 2024 study session minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. Guest council person for the whole month of October will be Susan Cornforth. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. Who invited you?
And
Great. Do one of you want to introduce?
I'll let Susan handle it.
Sorry. I am not originally from Waverly, but I've lived here for 22 years, and this is, I think, the third time I've served as guest council person, and I really enjoy it, and I encourage anyone who's been offered the opportunity to do it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. We'll call on you at the end of the meeting. Friends, I'd like to recommend to you a proclamation on national disability. Let me read it to you. Whereas recognition of the contributions of persons with disabilities is an effective way to overcome negative stereotypes and eliminate physical and attitudinal barriers to full participation in all aspects of community life, including education, recreation, and employment. And whereas people with disabilities are an important, vital part of our community as valued workers, civic leaders, business owners, veterans, family members, and friends, and they are innovative and valued contributors in the workplace, the classroom, and the community. And whereas the City of Waverly is committed to ensuring that city programs and employment practices effectively serve and benefit persons of all abilities in order to support individual dignity, self-reliance, and productive lives for all people. And whereas Waverly is proud to renew its dedication to fostering equal access and demonstrating commitment to full inclusion of people with disabilities. And now, therefore, I, Mark A. Anderson, Mayor of the City Council, Mayor and the City Council of the City of Waverly, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 in Waverly, Iowa as National Disability Employment Awareness Month and encourage all citizens to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of persons with disabilities throughout our community. Adopted this 7th day of October. Can I have a motion to approve?
I will move approval of the proclamation proclaiming October 2024 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month in the City of Waverly, Iowa.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I was fortunate enough this month to attend a fundraiser at the Larrabee Center and to learn about the tremendous financial impact that organization has in our community by employing people with disabilities, many at the college, many at Bartles, and other stores and stuff around town. And they pay their clients that generates income. And a whole lot of people, is it 64? Do I remember that correctly? I believe so. And our workforce we need 64 more people. So it's important work.
I think I missed who seconded.
That was Councilman Jones. Any other discussion? I hear none. You appear ready to vote. This is a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That passed unanimously. We're on to item G. These are public comments on items not on the agenda. If you would like to speak to anything that's not on the agenda, please rise to the microphone now. I see no one. I'm on item H, the consent calendar. Council, you have in front of you the consent calendar. We're paying a lot of bills and issuing a lot of alcohol license. So, can I have a motion to approve?
I'd move approval of the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Well, we'll give that to Julie. And any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That passed unanimously. We're on item I, regular business. If anyone here wishes to speak to any item that's on tonight's regular agenda, please come to the microphone before we start discussing it so I know that you wish to be called on. Ready? Number 1. This is the second reading of Ordinance 1155, an ordinance amending the Waverly Municipal Code, Chapter 105, Traffic, Section 105.4.10, additional parking restrictions to allow time-restricted parking spaces in municipal parking lots. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the second reading of ordinance 1155, an ordinance amending the Waverly Municipal Code, Chapter 105, Traffic, Section 105.4.10, additional parking restrictions to allow time-restricted parking spaces in municipal parking lots.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion?
So I missed the first meeting where this was discussed, but it's my understanding that this action we would take tonight would be to just give us the opportunity, if we so choose in the future, to make restrictions, but not designating any particular restrictions at this point.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that
A
correct?
separate resolution will be brought before you designating certain areas with 1 or 2 spots here and there at a separate time, whether it's right after approval for the third reading if that happens, or a little later. We do want to look at providing a couple spaces potentially in different lots to help assist businesses, et cetera.
Yeah.
Whether it be takeout or dropping things off or just to try and free up some space.
Okay.
And specifically, this is the municipal parking lots. This is not on-street parking.
That is correct.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I guess I would add that a couple of weeks ago, I did visit with as many business people as I could find willing to take me to discuss, and just asked them if there were any concerns about this. And we'd received one email from someone. I didn't have any luck contacting that person personally, but everybody else that I talked to had no objections in terms of business people.
Yeah, we did get an email from Dustin Newhoff, who owns a business right there near Get Roasted. And I did reach out to him with some questions I had about who is parking in that rear parking lot, and got some feedback from him about just difficulties with sometimes getting parking back there. Plus on the street, there's some people that live in that area that are parking there,
Right.
sometimes for long periods of time, which doesn't free up some spots. And so I think that's a conversation we need to have at a future date when specific requests come before us.
Any more discussion? You appear ready to vote. This will be a roll call vote. Carla?
Bergen?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
That was 6-0 unanimous. We'll move on to number 2. Resolution 24-174, a resolution approving change order number 6 from Mott Construction for the Parks Maintenance Building Remodel Phase 2. Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution 24-174, a resolution approving change order number 6 from Mott Construction for the Parks Maintenance Building Phase 2 for an increased amount of $1,130.82.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? None? Okay, Carla?
Jones?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
6-0, that passed unanimously. Resolution 24-175, a resolution approving change order number 1 from Mott Construction for the all-inclusive playground at Cedar River Park. Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution 24-175, a resolution approving change order number 1 from Mott Construction for the all-inclusive playground at Cedar River Park for an increased amount of $26,303.
Second.
Any discussion?
Rocks,
Bedrock.
bedrock.
Things like that. Every time you dig in Waverly, you're flipping the coin. If you're going to hit sand, bedrock, or something you can get through. That's why additional boring's usually done. This area, they thought we had a handle on it, but when you start to get in there, you may hit it at any time. So unfortunately, it's something we face on most projects. That's why the bridge replacement was delayed a year, to make sure multiple borings were done at every pier site for this very reason. You could be bedrock here, 10 yards away, you're at sand. There's no rhyme or reason, that's just the topography under the ground for Waverly.
Okay. I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't when they did the grading and the
The
testing for
initial
the
project, yeah.
whole project that they hadn't found it, but
If you punch a hole 20 feet away, you might hit
Yeah,
nothing. It's
yeah.
just a very difficult thing to pinpoint the way it works under the ground here.
And so is the additional money, is that coming out of contingencies or that were on the original project?
I still think
or-
we have funding within budget, but I'll let Garrett speak to that.
Sure. So it's going to be really close with the other grants that we
Oh, okay.
have. I mean, we were at $502,000 with engineering and with construction costs. This will put us to about 528 or so, and we're about 520 for funding.
For what, I'm sorry?
We have about 520 funding for it also.
Oh, okay,
$8,000.
$8,000. Okay.
So,
Any other discussion? Carla, let's have a vote.
Kangas,
yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Rocky,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Bergen,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
I counted 6-0, unanimous. Number 4, this is Resolution 24-176. A resolution setting a bid, letting date, and setting a public hearing for the rail trail bridge replacements. And before anyone gets excited, this is not the Nestle Bridge. These are other bridges. We call them the bridges of Bremer County.
That is not covered, sir.
So can we have a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 24-176, a resolution setting a bid letting date for October 22nd, 2024, and setting a public hearing date for November 4th, 2024, at 7 PM in the council chambers at City Hall to review and approve the rail trail bridge replacements project plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Prairie Run, Slemons Run, and the Cemetery Run bridges.
Second.
I guess we'll go with Brian on that since it was a tie. All right, so any more discussion?
I'm noticing that the Baskins Creek, the one that has just been replaced, is about the same cost as these three.
Combined, they're about the size of baskets roughly, plus you have mobilization costs for each individual one.
Okay.
And so one's going to be a culvert, though, not a
I
bridge?
believe so. You want to talk to that, Justin, that design?
Yeah, Cemetery Run, they actually did some hydrologic studies, and they found out that they can put a 5-foot concrete culvert in sections, and that can meet the demand or the flow that goes through that area. Significant cost savings versus a span bridge like the other ones we're planning to do.
What would be 5 feet?
Five
culvert.
culvert.
Across?
It would be like
Diameter.
a
Okay, 'cause
dip
that was gonna be
or a-
tall. That's
No,
gonna
it's
be a
actually a
problem.
concrete pipe that'll be
Oh,
installed.
like
in-
the other tunnels there?
It'll be the other way around, though. The
Okay.
water will
Go under.
into it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Any more discussion? Okay. Carla?
Myers,
Yes.
Rocky,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
I counted 6-0, that passed unanimously. We're now at Resolution 24-177, a resolution awarding the Public Service Center Material Cold Storage Building, the Wall Construction Project to Baker Enterprises Incorporated of Waverly, Iowa. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 24-177, a resolution awarding the Public Services Center Material Cold Storage Building Wall Construction Project to Baker Enterprises Incorporated of Waverly, Iowa, for the bid amount of $119,000. Is it 11,936 or?
360.
360.
That's $119,360. I would rather like the 11,000 better.
Yeah, I did too.
$119,360.
Sorry about that.
Second.
Any discussion? Just for our friends who are online, So material cold storage does not mean it's refrigerated storage. It's storing things which can get cold, the sand, salt, whatever.
Right.
And this is we're now talking about the folks who will build the walls, will put the storage thingy on top.
Yep, that's the next item.
Yep. And any discussion? Okay, Carla?
Rafi?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
That was 6-0 and passed unanimously, which takes us then to Resolution 24-178. Now, this is a resolution approving ClearSpan sales agreement and installation agreement with the City of Waverly for material cold storage building at the Public Service Center. I would entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 24-178, a resolution approving a ClearSpan sales agreement for the amount of $92,780.83, an installation agreement for the amount of $47,279, for a total of $140,059.83 with the City of Waverly for the material cold storage building at the Public Services Center.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I just have a question about, so it looks like a sort of a domed building. What's the roof made out of?
It's identical to the salt shed that we have out there currently. It's a fabric. It's lasted very well.
Okay.
Since that's been installed.
Thanks.
Anything else? Carla, let's have a vote.
Wolf?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
That was 6-0, passed unanimously. That takes us to Resolution 24-179, a resolution approving a Second Amendment to Option Tower and Ground Space Lease Agreement with USCOC of Greater Iowa Limited Liability Corporation, known as US Cellular. Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution 24-179, a resolution approving a Second Amendment to Option Tower and Ground Space Lease Agreement with US COC of Greater Iowa LLC, US Cellular, by modifying the equipment at the site and updates the lease exhibit, updating the depictions of the site.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we're on the table. Any discussion?
How much is the lease worth? What's the dollar amount?
Right offhand, it's right around $2,500 a month.
Has that changed over time?
That changes, it increases at the next renewal at every 5 years. And it's the standard rate of 15%, I believe. So it's 3% per year.
Will we be seeing these same types of resolutions from other vendors that have equipment on the tower?
I would assume there would be something coming. US Cell has been very active. They're the ones that led a lot of the agreements going forward with some of the work that'll have to be done on replacing some bracing and the structural stuff that's going on. I think they're really urging themselves to get moving on putting it up there. They want to be the first ones on the tower. I don't know if it's for service reasons, because they've had some issues around town. So I'm wondering if that's some of the problems. But they've been the leader in moving with this. So I would assume the other ones will follow suit, but they're a little slower, I think.
And so this is one of the ones that's on top of the tower. Okay.
So they're actually reducing their footprint. Before, I think it was, I can't remember, 6 or 8 on this one. They all vary differently. So with the improvement in equipment over the years, they use less equipment.
And as I recall, we passed a resolution that when they put it up, we need to be around to watch them, make sure they don't damage the tower.
They have, all the carriers, when they reinstall, have a agreement with KLM Engineering for the inspection and all the required paperwork for that.
Good, as long as it's not me climbing on top of that thing, I'm all for it.
Well, it would be a shame after we went all this work to make the water tower looking nice if they're going to actually like punch a couple holes in it to put their antennas up.
Any more discussion? We're voting on 24-179. Carla?
Bergen?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
6-0. We're on item number 8. This is the first reading of ordinance 1156, an ordinance amending Chapter 53, peddlers, solicitors, transient merchants, and mobile food vendors, Section 53.13, mobile food vendor of Waverly Municipal Code of Ordinances. Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the first reading of ordinance 1156 and ordinance amending Chapter 53, peddlers, solicitors, transient merchants, and mobile food vendors, Section 53.13, mobile food vendor, Sections 53.13.4, 53.13.5, 53.13.7, 53.13.7B, 53.137C, 53.13.7D, 53.13.7G, 53.13.7H, 53.137I, and 53.137K of the Waverly Municipal Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Is this in response to something that happened?
We had a paragraph that was omitted accidentally, so we will be releasing this and doing it again.
Okay.
So we've already approved most of it once. This will finish it.
Okay.
So
Any other discussion? We're approving the first reading. This will be a roll call vote. Please, Carla.
Jones.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Ralphie.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
6-0. We move on to item 9, a discussion about the referendum. James, you want to take this?
Sure. We just wanted to put this on. I know there's been a lot more activity and chatter out in the community, and at times, some of that is not very factual. So while in this room, all you can do is speak factually, so we want to provide an opportunity for council members, any questions you've had that we need to answer, any comments you want to make that pertains to this, as we do have less than a month to go before this vote will occur, and there's limited chances for you to really publicly state what you're feeling. So I don't have a lot to add to this necessarily, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you wanted to speak to anything you've been hearing, seeing, talking about, finding, as it pertains to these two items, the pool and the clubhouse. And again, we can only speak factually. You cannot pro or con this during the dais. So I'll open it up. Anybody, any comments, any questions? Otherwise, I'll make a few statements.
So question I have, the amounts and the length of them were tied with 15 years.
Yes, sir.
For payback on the bonds. Should one referendum pass and the other not, would it be possible to speed up the payback time frame, assuming that that payback was figured for both bonds passing as the worst case scenario? Would that then free up room budgetary wise to do a larger payment on only one of those as opposed to both of them?
So the way we have it structured currently, as you know, we're hoping to use local option sales tax to pay back some of the bonds for each item if they are approved. That will not happen until year 6. That's why the numbers we're using is the worst case scenario happening 6 years in. That's when it would kick in. If at that point in time, you still had a referendum that was not approved and you decided to forego that and not approve it, not go forward with any more changes, you could apply additional local option sales tax to that project and in effect pay it off earlier. I don't think there's any penalty for paying bonds down, but there will be a spot where you can recall them, you can refund them, you can pay them down. All that can be looked at if that happens, but it would be year 6 before anything like that
Year
could
6
occur.
before we would have any belt room or budget.
Any additional fund availability to make that happen. Otherwise, you would have to increase taxes even more to make that occur earlier. Right now, we have it paced, again, for our first 5 years to be less, because we have a limit on how much we want to go up in our total capacity. And then in room 6, or year 6, there's a lot more room. And what we can do, thanks to local option sales tax, that is where the parkway falls off, as does the final year of the ball diamonds, that lump sum that was paid there, and then you could, again, accelerate the payments if need be. But it would still be a 15-year bond, just paid down earlier. And we would want to work with Spear to see how quickly that could occur, since there is a standard time frame that you will not want to do that, so your investors have a confident sense going into the bids.
I've had citizens comment that they think it's a little expensive, and try to remember that this is the worst-case scenario. This is something terrible went wrong in construction, we discovered something, and so we have to ask for the maximum amount of money we believe possible. We don't want to be in a situation where we built a pool but can't afford to put in the pumps or the floor.
Correct.
Which is why we also don't go to any kind of fundraising or anything beforehand either, because we don't want to assume we're getting something in fundraising. I guess my other questions, kind of leading the witness here, I guess. I'm not a lawyer, so I can do that. Is there any chance that either these two locations, the conditions are going to improve in the next 10 years?
Absolutely not. The wear and tear
You
on
mean
each
of
of
the-
these,
Yeah,
Like
is
the
the
pool
pool
and
going to get in
building?
better shape, or is the clubhouse going to get in better shape?
not unless magical elves come down in the middle of the night.
Okay.
These are deteriorating at a rapid pace. The pool has definitely seen its better days, and it will remain closed.
And then
moving
is there
forward.
any likelihood that costs would go down?
I don't see it
Future
happening.
years.
I mean, I don't build a lot. I can ask staff if they see any trends happening that way, but everything I've seen points to costs only go up, they do not go down, especially when it comes to concrete and steel and building materials.
Yeah, I kind of knew the answers though, but
No,
figured
I
we'd get
understand
those out there.
that. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's one of those that's just, they are need things or want things according to the state, because they're not essential corporate,
They're amenities.
they're amenities, but they are both needed. The repairs or replacements are needed, not, we want them, but they're not gonna get any better.
Yes, sir. If these were brand-new things, there's cities I know of now that are looking at putting their first pool in. I think that is a different discussion. I think it's a different set of criteria. I think you look at that differently than are you replacing a fixture, a structure that already exists? And that's what we're doing. There's some comments about having an additional bar and things like that for the golf course. That's there now. Nothing changes from the way it occurs, except for we would have another line of revenue for the simulators, which again, I cannot promise it's going to offset everything, but it's going to pretty much offset the tax needed for the golf course. Conservative numbers show that if it doesn't offset, it will drastically reduce the amount of taxes needed to run the golf course.
We were pretty close last year with picking up the revenue with the alcohol.
It's getting better, but I don't know that we'll hit 30,000 rounds every year.
Right.
I know there was a question that I received about why don't we raise greens fees instead of borrowing all this money? So I said, that's a great idea. To get $5 million next year, you would have to raise green fees $183 a round. I don't think you're gonna keep 30,000 rounds at that pace if you do that.
Right.
Or you could raise them $12 a round for 30,000 rounds for the next 15 years, save all that money, assuming we don't need it for anything else, and in 15 years, you could start building it. Maybe, assuming the cost doesn't change, we keep 30,000 record rounds, and nobody goes away from the $12 increase. So not to be facetious, those sound like it's a great idea, it's a terrible idea. You cannot possibly do that with projects of this size and nature. It just does not work.
The sheets that got mailed to all the homeowners estimated the cost, what this will be in property taxes. But that assumption, besides being the highest possible price tag, also assumed that there'd be no more construction in town.
No growth.
No growth. Even though we can see in Aldi's and 58 Houses
Yes.
and Anna Estates, it assumes none of those projects ever finish. So as we grow, then the tax burden per household will diminish.
It should. That's how it's generally occurred. A higher tax base reduces the amount of dollar across each household to cover the same price of property.
I think that was the most confusing piece for people is, the sticker shock of that number, but then, trying to explain that we're not trying to be misleading, we're trying to be conservative and only, you can't come back and ask for more money partway through a project, so.
Unless you want to have another election.
Right.
And that's the hard part with what we had to put out there. We could only put in facts. And we even commented to both the labor attorneys and the other attorneys and the Spear Financial, why can't we include local option sales tax numbers? And it's because in 6 years, when that would occur, this entire council could turn over and a new council could say, we're not going to put any money towards that. We're just going to keep taxing for it. I think that's ridiculous if it happens, and I'll probably quit, but if that were to happen, we are where we are, and the numbers that were presented are what was presented. That's it. If we use the local option sales tax, as we have talked about, we had a vote to allow us to do that last year, then it greatly reduces the amount per item, as we've discussed, and Julie's done a wonderful job of writing articles in the paper. We've talked about it and talked about it. It reduces the amount of taxes substantially. And that is the goal, to use that $600,000 currently being utilized for other projects towards these two projects when that time happens, which again would be year 6.
Earlier in the meeting, we unanimously approved the proclamation for the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Neither of these facilities are compliant
Correct.
with current federal or state law. People with disabilities, several disabilities, would not be able to use the pool as it currently is or the clubhouse.
That is one of the main factors that we were trying to look at as we took over the clubhouse at the time. Is not ADA compliant. The multi-layer build of the clubhouse doesn't really allow us to add on, because the room is not there for simulators, and then you need additional staffing to watch them, et cetera. So that was also brought up. Why don't we just add them to the current building? We already have additional staff needed to monitor 3 separate layers to make sure that we're seeing what we're seeing, being compliant, that nature. And so the goal of this plan was to go to a single layer where one individual can see everywhere. And at this point in time, we have consolidated some of our items into just the clubhouse, and you can almost do that from the clubhouse. It accomplishes what we're trying to do, but on a single layer instead of 3 layers. And it still is not ADA compliant as it is currently. It will be if we were able to move forward.
I just wanted to comment, I would highly encourage anybody in the public who didn't hear the interview on K-Way this morning. Mayor Mark and Dr. Rothy were both on there and gave excellent information. I would really encourage people to listen to that if they haven't already. And one other sort of question that came to my mind, when my family came to Waverly in 1997, we were just getting ready to build the new library. And do you remember, Sarah, the number 3.2 million is in my head, but, and I remember at the time thinking, wow. But that was 27 years ago. And these are really big numbers, and they're scary numbers, and I think we all need to be very serious about consideration of them. I would also encourage people to take a realistic view at, you know, how our cost of living has changed also.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was I was talking to Scott Leisinger from Wartburg last week, because I'm going to make a few remarks about the partnership between the city and Wartburg when they built the W. And the W, you know, that project started, I think, in about 2006 to 2008. And it was a $30 million project. And private citizens raised $5 million privately, which, you know, 15, 20 years ago was impressive. And I think there was a question this morning about, you know, private funding of this and donors. And I think you always have to be aware of donor fatigue, right, with the library, the ball diamonds, et cetera. And so, like you said, James, you can't, we don't, or maybe Tim, you can't, if we can't guarantee the project's going to be finished, in a project this size, you don't really want to collect money from private individuals at this point in the game. I think the other interesting question I've gotten frequently is, I think people think that at this stage of a project, we already have received an itemized cost analysis of the project. So people had very specific questions about what percentage of the project is the golf stimulators, what percentage of the project is certain things, and we never see that at this point in whether it's a road or a building or whatever, you know, we just don't, this is an estimate, you know, but we don't get itemized.
We walked
cost
through the
analysis.
estimates at a prior meeting, each one categorically, this is what it's assuming, these are the ballpark estimates on all of this, but you don't know until you're actually bidding.
Right.
And that's why the
How it's gonna come
contingencies
back.
are so prominent, because you have to have that in there. Soft cost, unknown cost. If we're taking 2 feet off the top of that hill of the golf course, let's say, who knows what's in there? When we pull the pool out, is there a 20-foot cavern in there that's been leaking for 20 years? I don't know. We don't know. We'll find out. But those are the reasons as those numbers are where they are. We don't anticipate to use anywhere near that much money, but If by chance you have to, that's why they're in there that way. So, and I don't disagree, I think we'd love to fundraise all this, but there's been a lot of fundraising in the last 3 or 4
Right,
years.
right.
Attack on the hospital, Warburg's always fundraising, it just never stops. And the other side of it is we're impatient. Nobody wants to take 2 or 3 years to fundraise enough to do this. We want it right now, next year. We want it next summer. We want to play it next year. You can't have both. If you want that urgency, this is how you're going to get it. If you don't, and you're fine waiting 2, 3, 4 years, we can fundraise for some of these things. But that's what it takes in order to get that done. But if everybody wants it right now, then the way you're going to have to do it is to do this.
It's just a fact of life, or, you know, the times we're in, that costs have gone up.
Yep.
You saw the article last week on the building permits, year over year, same number of permits, but a year ago, they were $375,000 average. This year, just under 505. That's a 35% increase in buildings, for residential
Yeah,
buildings.
yeah.
And that's gonna translate into this commercial.
So yeah, if you take a third of the cost off, you're now at a $6 million pool.
Right.
You're now at a $3 million, $3.5 million golf course.
Right.
Things that we were looking at 5 to 7 years ago, getting those kind of estimates. Then you go through COVID, you go through everything else we're all familiar with, and they have escalated because it simply is different now. It's just not that available, so.
One of the comments that I feel like I hear either outright or alluded to has to do with people being uncomfortable with debt. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't have a PhD in understanding debt, but would it be, now I'm going to put you on the spot. For people who have that concern, would you be willing to speak to them so that they could understand a little bit more about what municipal debt, how it works, and what is safe and what would not be safe?
Right, I mean, everyone has debt to some extent. It's called a mortgage. It's called a car payment. Debt is how larger purchases are done. I wish we were all fortunate enough to be able to just write a cash check for our house, and write a cash check for our automobiles and everything else like that. Government is no different. We carry enough in our reserves. You know, it's what we strive to do to be able to run our operations day to day, to be able to make payroll. It's why we have certain percentages we carry for that. We don't have cash just sitting idly around to do these large projects. And that's the difference. We have a debt levy specifically for that. Now, some places decide they don't want any debt ever. Some would say it's commendable, some would say it's irresponsible, because you're not truly using the tools that you could use. The other thing that debt does versus straight taxes is you have TIF. And you cannot tax against TIF for these projects, but debt does go across those projects. So it adds another $60 million roughly of value into the total amount that's being taxed against when you use debt versus using just straight taxes. And so that's some of the reasoning why we do what we do. Now, we have limitations. We've talked about that every single year. We have debt limits, a certain percentage of our value of the city that's factored into the Constitution, the code of the state. You can't change that. So we have a limit. Our goal is to stay within that limit and year after year look at what do we need to accomplish and can we do it within those guidelines. These two will push us very close to our limit, not our overall limit, but our self-imposed limit. And the difference in that is you have a 100% limit of what you can do for debt, 5% of the total value of the city, the assessed value. Waverly just this last year went over $1 billion in value, $1.05 billion. So 5% of that, say it's 50 million and change. We've self-imposed an 80% limit on top of that, which would take it down to 40 million. And so we always have another 20% sitting there just in case. Capacity, whether it be for things that you're seeing all across the country, floods and hurricanes, although I don't think we'll get a hurricane.
Probably not.
Ground hurricane, tornado. Those things happen and you have to have that capacity. That's why we have that self-imposed limit. So when people say you're going to max out your limit, we will never get to that point because we lock down that 20% anyway. So a lot of the goal, what myself and staff do is we find a way to finance significant amounts of money over a certain amount of years with a little bit of cushion that's left. And that's how you do it. You pay off a certain amount, you add a certain amount. And year after year, we have these planned out up to 5 years out, sometimes 10. This is how we're able to do it. So we intentionally, for the last how many years, have brought down our debt from 80% at one time, not that many years ago, down to the low 50s, which is where a lot of cities may run. Some are higher, some are lower, but we're in the low 50s in anticipation of these very projects. So we've already been responsible to where we've made the room, we have the capacity to be able to borrow the money to even do them. And I tell you every year, there's two questions. Can you do it and should you do it? We can do it. Now the question for you and actually the voters is should you? And that'll be decided in November. But our job was to get into a position of where we could do these. We have the ability to do them, the ability to pay for them, and certain different funding sources have been identified the best we can do. But overall, that's what debt is for. It is for significantly large projects. You know, there's cities, I'll tell you, they borrow money to pay for their police cars. We don't do that. They borrow money to pay for very small improvements. The things that we did with our parking lots, that we paid for those out of what we had, we did not borrow for those. We could have. If rates were super low again, that's almost a better way to go about it, but I don't like having any more debt incurred than we need to as well. And we have a whole list of other projects we'd like to someday get fit in.
Yeah.
We still have more bridges to fix, with things like that. So even if there is a project that would not go, let's say, there's other projects waiting. They'll just fill right in. It's not as if this, saves us all this money. We have a list of things that still need to be done that people want done. Whether it's trail bridges, even the Nestle one someday. You have streets to be overhauled. You have all kinds of things that we needed as a city to continue to do. And so debt is one mechanism to do. It's the most common. It's the easiest in some sense, if you're able to correctly manage it. And if you look at how much debt has been gone through since we have been here, in the last 8 or 9 years, we've still had that same capacity left or less, but we've been able to do some significant things with it, utilizing all the different funding sources we had. Even when the Parkway was done, $11 million, we did not put that against our debt capacity anymore because of TIF and local option sales tax. No property taxes were used for that. No debt levy was used for that. We've done all we can to keep it as low as we possibly can. Same thing will happen with these projects if they go through, and that's why we talk to you about all these different kind of things. So debt is scary if you don't know what you're doing with it. And debt is something I've dealt with the last 21 years. It's probably one of my strongest points. And so I'm not concerned at all because we know how to manage it. We've shown that the last 8, 9 years, we've managed a significant amount of debt through this place and gotten a lot of projects done. This will be no different.
Well, and we get feedback every year that we are a good risk. You know,
Moody's likes us a lot.
They like us, so we pay our bills and,
Yep.
yeah.
Are there any other things you've heard from the citizens, questions or comments that you'd like to have addressed in an information kind of way?
I've heard several times that when you drive by the clubhouse, you know, looking from 4th Street, it looks, looks adequate. But I would say to anybody that hasn't been inside, go up during business hours and just, talk to Jordan David and have a quick tour or walk through the facility.
Yep.
And its age and problems will be very apparent.
Yeah, and I think, the other thing that we always are looking for, and one reason I think that we want to do projects like this eventually, whether the voters decide to or not is up to them, but is having things for people to do. And I think, I was reviewing sort of what it costs, right, for a season pass at the pool, what it costs if you're a kid to play golf all summer, and it's a total bargain, right? Like $65 at the pool, close to that for golf, for junior golfers, for a year, for the whole year. I mean, that's amazing. So, I think that's one thing that people will, that's one factor that can be weighed, but everybody has to decide if it's valuable. What the question that Jen and I got in an email was, tell me why this should have value for me. Why should I vote for this if I don't swim or I don't play golf or whatever? And, each person's going to have to figure that out.
It's the same reason you pay for a street you may not drive on.
Well, that's what I said, yes. So,
And
yeah,
others may not
yeah.
agree with what you want later. It's kind of
Yeah.
a this and that, and that's kind of how this all works in the end.
Yeah.
But I would just ask people to get educated on the numbers, see where you are with comfort level. Don't pit one against the other.
Right.
They're different. They have different reasons, different backgrounds, different ideas of why they're happening. It's just not a good situation, try and pit one and the other. They are completely different animals.
So I think Julie had a really good point in her article. Why do you live in Waverly? I mean,
Exactly.
there's two things. You chose to live here, as we did. We chose to move to Waverly. Or you could say, well, I was born here. Well, then why did you stay? I mean, there's got to be a reason that you're in Waverly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, we can only answer, when we were composing an email back to a constituent, I think we can't lobby for this. You can say as a private citizen, right, what you believe. I know that when I'm taking prospective doctors around town, or any healthcare professional, really, they can live anywhere. They can go anywhere they want. Half of them are working from home, it seems like now, at least in psychiatry, but where do I take them, right? I drive them by the library, drive them by the W, drive them by the Ball Diamonds, take them now, I'm taking them around Lover's Lane, because I can't go the bridge, I'm showing them downtown businesses. So it's all those non-essentials, right, that make somebody's decision about where they're gonna live. And so it's the, what's good for the community as a whole, and like you put it really well, it's our job as a council, your job as staff to tee this up, no pun intended, tee it up for the voters, make sure we're in a position where we can responsibly do this, and then they each have to decide if it's affordable for their household, or whether they think it has value for the community as a whole. That's what it comes down to, and we'll find out in a month. And so, I agree, we just have to make sure it's fact, not fiction that's being put out there, rumor, gossip. It's not helpful. And we cannot control what gets put on Facebook, right? So people are frustrated, I think, when stuff gets out there, but we can't control that.
And I would add to that if you have questions, ask one of us or call city staff. Get it straight from the people who know and understand.
Yep.
I just have one more thought that kind of keeps coming back to my mind. Over the last year or two, in conversations with regard to economic development for our community, one of the things that has come up on a number of different occasions in conversations I've been having is that our work world is different than it was even 10 years ago, that so many people work remotely now, and as small rural communities, should we be positioning ourselves to attract people who can live anywhere? And I don't say that to try to persuade anybody one way or the other on this vote, but I think that is a really significant change that's happened in our society in the last decade. And there doesn't seem to be any indication that trend is going to change. So I think that could be a really healthy thing for small rural communities who make themselves attractive to other people who can live anywhere.
So hopefully people will get registered to vote and learn what they can and get out there and vote.
Voting opens October 16, and you can register when you go to vote, correct?
I think so in Iowa. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you, Carl.
I have nothing else, sir.
All right, we'll move to item J, reports from boards and commissions. Council, do you have any comments or questions on the reports? I hear none. Item K, staff updates.
We have a few tonight, sir. Sarah, if you would, ladies first.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that coming up this week is our final closure before the library's finished, and so it'll be October 10th through the 20th. The library will be closed for these last moving and installation phases, and then we'll be setting a date sometime in November for a grand opening.
What if I'm just truly desperate for a book, Sarah? What can I do?
During the week of the 14th through the 18th, you can call anytime or email and come through the drive-up window.
And you
So-
can also now reserve books on the new
Yes, you can.
catalog, right?
You can.
So can you also do that and then pick it up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Director Meyer.
Gentlemen.
Just a quick reminder, Thursday, October 10th, 4 to 6 p.m., open house, WPC. All staff will be there. Any questions to give tours? I hope everyone can make it out there and actually see where all that long project went.
Thank you. Yeah, I just took that tour last week. It was really interesting, and I learned how much I did not know about wastewater treatment. It's cool. I really encourage people to go.
All right, well, if you didn't know where First Home Park was before this last week, you do now, I'm sure. As I'm sure all of you know, there was a fire there last Wednesday morning. Thanks to our fire staff, we got out there right away and put it out before it did any more damage, because pictures are all out there. There's some pretty good flames there. So the investigation still continues there. We don't know anything yet. Now for some good news is we have gotten construction started on the all-inclusive playground. So that's cruising right along now. As you drive by on Cedar River Parkway, pull into the parking lot, take a quick look, and watch the progress being made. They're moving on it pretty good. The golf course was voted by the Courier best of the best in the Cedar Valley under the entertainment and golf course. So something that we won in 2021 as well, so another nice award. And then community gardens. This year was another record. I don't know how Ron Wunf does it every year. I don't know how our volunteers do it every year. But it seems like we get records every year. We're up to 15,426 pounds of food that was harvested from the garden.
Wow. That's all we have tonight, sir. Thank you. Okay, city council comments. Councilperson Bergen.
Well, I wanted to let people know that there's going to be a satellite voting station at Wartburg College on Saturday, October 19th. I believe it's 10 to 4. I believe it's going to be in the Student Union. But that is open to not only Wartburg students, not only Wartburg faculty, not only all citizens of Waverly, but actually all citizens of Braemar County can go and cast an early vote. Additionally, it is late enough or early enough that so you can vote, but you can also register to vote and cast a ballot, not merely a provisional ballot, because there's enough time for your registration to clear. So again, that is Saturday, October 19th at Wartburg, is an opportunity to cast your ballot early if you want to make sure that it's in place. So
Time frame?
I believe it's 10 to 4.
And is that at the Fair Student Union or where?
I believe it's at the Student Union. So, but I know it's at Wartburg. That's also the same day as homecoming, so it'll be a busy time there. But if you want to go visit Ren Fair and then go cast your vote, you have that opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilperson Jones. Councilperson Meyer.
Hope you'll indulge me and let me make a personal comment. Mayor Mark ends every meeting by saying, "Waverly, be kind." And over the last 3 weeks, man, Waverly has shown up for my family, and I just can't express gratitude enough. So thank you to city staff, council, and so many people from Waverly. Boy, you make me happy that this is where home is for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Kangas. Councilperson Rothy.
I want to thank all the organizers for the Oktoberfest. We had great weather, good turnout. It was fun, a lot of activities, and good times were had. I also want to comment that there's a chamber music series that happens at the St. Paul's Narthex about a half a dozen times a year. There was a concert Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. These are free. They have a website. I would encourage people to check it out. There was a concert Sunday afternoon that they had just played in Boston. And then came to Waverly, Iowa. So it was an international concert. One of the musicians was from London, and the other woman's from Minnesota, but it's amazing music, and it's free, so I would really commend that to people. And how did we harvest all of that food? With Motrin, and a heating pad for me at the end of stretching, but we had a good core group of volunteers, great supervision from Ron from the ISU Extension Office. And I'd encourage people next year to come out and join us. You don't have to know anything to get out there and work in the garden and the orchard. So would encourage people to check it out next year.
Thank you, Councilperson Wolf.
There's a disability voting rights opportunity tomorrow night at Wartburg from 6 to 7:30. And I think several of the candidates will be there to answer questions. I'm not sure I'm sure it's at the Cedar, at the center, the Student Center. I'm not sure where in the Student Center. And I will be at Get Roasted to answer any council business or city business from 11:30 to 1 on Friday.
Thank you. Councilperson Bergen, are you being out tonight?
When we have an executive session, I don't tend to go to the bar because nobody knows when I'm going to get there.
That's right, I remember that now, thank you. Guest Councilperson Cornforth, do you have any comments?
I just wanted to thank the council for the opportunity, particularly Dr. Rothy, who invited me. And I look forward to attending the other 2 meetings this month that I've been invited to as well. And I really enjoyed my time. So I'll leave it at that for this evening.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to all of the volunteers, vendors, and to Nestle for providing the fireworks at Oktoberfest. It was a really good time, huge turnout, and it's Waverly's party, and Waverly partied to make itself proud. Friends, you know, we all have families, right? It's great when we can celebrate together. It's great when we can mourn together. Because celebrating or mourning, we are together. Waverly, be kind. I would, friends, entertain a motion to discuss strategy with council in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, where it is disclosed would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation, as provided by section 21.5.1, subsection C of the Code of Iowa. I'll accept a motion now.
I move we enter into executive session.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rothy.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
That was unanimous. We are now in closed session.